green card holders, NVC, quietly changed the rules. Today, if you're a green card holder, a US citizen waiting for a family member, or someone who has been going through the immigration process for months or even years, I want you to stop for just a moment before you do anything else. Take a breath. Because if you saw a headline today about the NVC, the National Visa Center, changing its rules, I completely understand why you might feel a wave of worry. I understand why your heart might have jumped a little. And I want you to know that the reason I'm here making this video right now is not to add to that worry. My goal today is the exact opposite. My goal is to sit with you calmly and explain what is actually happening, what it means for you specifically, and what you do not need to panic about. My name is Michael, and on this channel, we talk about immigration news the way it should be talked about, slowly, clearly, and honestly. No rumors, no drama, just the truth. Explained simply so that every single person watching, whether you are 30 years old or 75 years old, can walk away feeling more informed and more at peace than you were when you clicked play. Before we go any further, I want to be transparent with you, as I always am. I am not a lawyer, I am not a government official, nothing I share in this video is legal advice, and nothing here should replace a conversation with a licensed immigration attorney if your situation is complex. What I'm here to do is take complicated government language and translate it into words that real people can actually understand. That is the purpose of this video. With that said, let us get into what is really going on. The National Visa Center, which most people in the immigration world simply call the NVC, is a processing center operated by the US Department of State. It sits in the middle of the journey between getting an approved petition from USCIS and actually going to an embassy or consulate abroad for a visa interview. If you are a US citizen who filed for a family member overseas, or if you are a green card holder who petitioned for a spouse or child, the NVC is the office that handles the paperwork between those two big steps. It collects documents, processes fees, reviews forms, and eventually, when everything is complete and a visa number is available, schedules the interview appointment at a US embassy or consulate in the applicant's home country. Now, what people are talking about today and what has caused some confusion and anxiety online is that the NVC has made changes to its procedures and communications. These are not hidden changes. They are not secret policy shifts made in the middle of the night to harm families. But they are real changes, and they do affect how cases move forward, which is exactly why I want to explain them carefully. Here is what has actually changed. The NVC has been updating the way it processes certain case types, the way it requests documents, and in some cases, the requirements around what documents are considered acceptable and what the timelines look like for submitting information through the online portal, which is called CEAC, the Consular Electronic Application Center. For some applicants, this means receiving new or different requests for documentation than they might have expected based on older guidance. For others, it means changes in how long they have to respond to document requests or how cases are flagged for additional review. Some of these updates also relate to how the NVC is handling cases that were previously on hold, cases that were paused due to prior policy changes, or cases that fall into specific visa categories that have seen changes in processing priority. Now, I want to be very honest with you about something. Change at the government agency, any government agency, always sounds alarming when you first hear about it, especially when you have been waiting, especially when you are emotionally invested in the outcome, especially when you have already spent months, maybe years, gathering documents, paying fees, and checking your email every single day hoping for good news. When something shifts, even slightly, the fear that it might affect your case specifically is completely natural. I want to validate that feeling. It makes perfect sense. But I also want to gently encourage you not to let that feeling run ahead of the facts. Let us talk about who these changes most directly affect. The NVC updates being discussed today are primarily relevant to applicants in the family-based immigrant visa pipeline, meaning people who are immigrating to the United States to join a family member who is either a US citizen or a lawful permanent resident. This includes spouses, children, and parents of US citizens, as well as spouses and unmarried children of green card holders. If you're in this category and your case is currently at the NVC stage, meaning your petition was approved by USCIS and it was sent to the NVC for the next steps, then these updates may be directly relevant to you. For people in other categories, people who are already inside the United States waiting for adjustment of status, people who already have their green card, people who are naturalized citizens, the NVC procedural changes do not directly affect your existing status. Your green card is your green card. Your citizenship is your citizenship. A change in how the NVC processes overseas visa applications does not reach back and change what you already have. I want to be clear about that because I know some people watching are worried that something they see in the news will somehow undo what they have already earned. That is not how this works. The immigration system, whatever its challenges, does not randomly revoke things that have already been approved and issued unless there is an entirely separate and very serious legal process involved. And that is an entirely different situation from what we are talking about today. Now, let us talk about some of the common myths that are already spreading online, because whenever something changes at an agency like the NVC, the rumor mill moves very fast and very irresponsibly. One myth that is circulating is that the NVC is now rejecting green card applications across the board, or that family visas are being cancelled. This is not accurate. Changes in processing procedures do not mean mass cancellations. If your case is at the NVC, it is still there. It is still moving. Even if it feels like it is not moving, processing is slow. It has always been slow, and slow is not the same as stop. Another myth is that green card holders who have family members in the visa pipeline will now lose their ability to sponsor those family members. Again, this is not accurate. Being a lawful permanent resident gives you certain sponsorship rights, and those rights exist in the law. Administrative processing changes at the NVC do not erase those rights. A third thing people are saying online is that the NVC is suddenly requiring things it never required before in order to trap applicants or cause denials. That framing is overly dramatic and not fair to what is actually happening. Agencies update their document requirements from time to time. Sometimes this is because of new security protocols. Sometimes it is because of changes in how certain countries issue civil documents. Sometimes it is because the technology they use has been updated and the submission process is slightly different. It is frustrating when those changes happen mid-case. It genuinely is. But the intent is not to trap people. The practical effect for most applicants is simply that they may need to gather one additional document, resubmit something in a different format, or wait for a new checklist before proceeding. Inconvenient? Yes. Devastating? No. Take a moment to breathe. If your case is at the NVC right now, the most important thing you can do is log into your CEAC portal and check your case status. Read any notices or requests carefully. Do not assume something terrible has happened just because the status has changed or because you received a new request. A request for documents is not a denial. A request for more information is not a rejection. It is simply the next step, even if that step is an unexpected one. I also want to spend a moment talking about some of the important distinctions that get lost when people talk about immigration changes in a general and frightening way. There is a very big difference between a delay and a denial. Delays happen constantly in the NVC process. They happen because of backlogs. They happen because of staffing. They happen because of visa number availability, which is controlled by something called the Visa Bulletin, a monthly publication from the State Department that determines which categories of applicants can move forward based on priority dates and country of birth. A case being delayed at the NVC, even for a long time, even for years in some preference categories, is not the same as that case being denied. Denied means the application was reviewed and a negative decision was made. Delayed means it is waiting. These two things feel similar when you are the one waiting, but they are completely different in terms of what happens next and what your options are. There is also an important difference between missing a deadline and fraudulent behavior. Some people are worried that if they miss a document deadline at the NVC, it is frustrating, but it is also structured, documented, and governed by law. Decisions are not made randomly. There are rules about what can be approved and what cannot. There are appeal rights. There are attorneys. There are organizations that help people navigate this system every single day. You are not facing this alone, and you are not powerless. The truth about what the NVC changed today is far less frightening than the headline made it sound. That is almost always the case. Headlines are designed to get your attention. What you need and what you deserve is information. Real, calm, careful information that helps you take the right next step rather than spiral into fear. So, here is my encouragement to you. Log into your CESE portal if you have a case there. Check your email for any communications from the NVC. Keep your documents organized. And if you have questions that go beyond what a video can answer, reach out to a professional. Not because something is wrong, but because being prepared is always a good idea. I am grateful that you spent this time with me today. If this video helped you feel a little calmer, a little more informed, and a little more ready to face whatever comes next in your immigration journey, then it did exactly what I hoped it would. If you have questions, or if you want me to go deeper on any specific part of the NVC process in a future video, please leave a comment below. I read them, and your questions help shape what we cover next. Stay informed, stay steady, and remember, the process is long, but you are not starting over. You are still in it, and being still in it means you still have a path forward. Take care of yourself today, and I will see you in the next one.